even just branding in general, should just be really, really easy. And I don't think it is easy. And I think the ones that are super easy, people don't necessarily like or remember. And that's one aspect. The other aspect is I think people are just naturally more aware of pain and potential pain.
Yeah.
And so if there's any type of pain, and it's not like physical pain, but a learning experience. I didn't know this before, and now I know, and now I want to go and communicate to the world about this thing that I know and that I learned.
Yeah.
There's a lot of potential there for a brand because that person has literally on their experience something branded on them.
That's interesting.
You see that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so like that's where I thought you were going with like the whole like pain thing and like the branding of the pain.
That ties it even closer to the actual thing of branding a company.
Okay.
For me, it was just like the visceral experience of like I can visualize what you're talking about without like, you know, having like maybe a business background or stuff like that. But having that background, I'm like, oh yeah, like you're right. It does. It is actually.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, man. Another week in the books.
Yeah, another week.
I feel like a lot happened this week.
Why do you say that?
Where do we begin? I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of going through and I'm cataloging all of there was times where I feel like it was a very strategic week.
Yeah. I definitely feel that, where it's like the plans are being laid for the next big push or the next like campaign, I would say.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. It's like especially like a couple days ago when it was like ironing out the strategy. And I think that's another thing too, man. One thing that I see a lot when I hear people talk about startups and hear people communicate about startups is it's always around the product. And the product's important, but there's so many other things that go into a startup. And the reason why I say it's a lot about the product is if you look at when you like say, okay, well, what's the company called? It's like people normally directly name it after the product.
Right.
And it's not like for instance, it's not like Apple's named MacBook or Apple's named iPhone. And so I wonder how much that actually influences like development and how people approach it.
The brand versus the product.
But going back to that, it's like how much starting from your product can shape your company, but I think you're always going to run into a brand issue or a block. Like it's hard to find product market fit when you're starting from the product, and that's really not communicated a lot in like the tech startup world.
I think there's a million different ways that you can start the company, but those are two very distinct starting spots. Starting with the product, starting with your brand. Some people start with the brand and they go, I don't really know what I'm going to sell, but I want to get my brand out there. Some people go, yeah, I have got that's a really cool product, but like nobody really knows what it is or who I am. You know, so I feel like there's two very valid starting points out of a million, but you do run into some issues because you kind of front load the work into that bucket according to which one you start on. You know what I mean? Like the people who are product first are probably more feature ready to go to market than a person who is brand ready. But the brand ready has the awareness of like, oh, that's who that person is. This is what they do. Even if I've never delivered anything, I've gotten in front of you and said like, hey, this is the mission I'm on. And so next time you see me, you know, both valid starting points. But
it's interesting because I've been toying with this idea of how to organize your business.
Okay.
And every part is ultimately crucial. But I think the sequencing of it especially in today's day and age, it's slightly different because we're just in a different setting. But starting from the way that I almost see it is marketing. Okay. All right, we're back in action, baby. Back, baby.
Takes a lot to come back in action.
Yeah, we're back. Okay. So
how to start a business, how to structure your business.
How to organize your business. It's also funny, like a lot of these things are named things for a reason, like named a certain way for a reason. Like an organization is all about like how you're organizing your business and your people. A company is like the group of people that you're doing business with immediately. The business is the shit that you're keeping busy with in a profitable way or a sustainable way. But going back to like what I was saying before is I look at it as you put your marketing first,
Okay.
and then finance, and then product, which includes technology.
Right.
And like, of course, there's like operations, administration, HR, and all that other stuff. But those three components are the most critical components, because if you don't have a market sense, then you don't have anybody to buy your products.
Right.
And that's just critical, because that's where money actually flows from. The next important thing is finance, because that's the thing that ultimately is the thing that's your money, like
Sustainable.
it's the sustainability aspect of it, and making sure that, but the thing is like some people, without actually dedicating time and attention to finance, can still have a sustainable business. They'll just be leaving money on the top.
That's true. That's
ultimately.
true.
And then on top of that, money doesn't necessarily have to come on day one if there's a longer term play, or if there's like a really strong market, because again, money flows through people. But then right after that, it's the product. It's like, what is the company or the group of people producing to create a profitable business, and to give like things to the actual person, which is part of the market.
Right.
And then I look at a subdivision of marketing as branding and selling. Branding being how people identify who you are, or like what the business is. It's like, just like if you're branding an animal, it's like people branded animals so that way if that animal got lost, people could return that animal to the owner, or it was easy to identify.
That's an interesting way to think about branding. As branding animals.
Well, that's the story that I've heard, and so maybe there's like another story into like how that branding became like a marketing thing. But that's like the way that I understand it, is that marketing is or like branding
To put your brand on something.
Yeah. And so it's like when you see that thing, that symbol, you know, oh, that's Jake, or that's Tendo, or oh, that's McDonald's. Like,
I think to me, as you're saying though, like all those things, I think I can see the light kind of shining through the trees. We were talking about like things that have a very visceral story. Yeah, there's a couple of different knobs there.
yeah, and I just lost a knob here. I got one right there.
Yeah, they just screw back on.
Huh?
They just screw back on.
Yeah, I'm just like,
They should.
What the heck happened here?
They should just you're at the bottom. But if it's off, it's gonna be a loosey goosey.
Yeah, I dropped. There's two things that dropped here.
Two things that dropped.
Yeah, I have one of them, and then the other one was another screw there.
Another one? Wait, what? Maybe it was something else.
It's strange. I'm gonna put this here,
Okay.
and then. Oh, I got it. I got it. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to screw it in right now, though.
What was it? Like another one of these?
Yeah, it was like a. Oh, I don't want to push that in there. Okay, well, it's right here though. This just might not be a reliable camera.
It might just be flopping.
Yeah.
This one flops a little bit too.
Yeah.
But we'll be able to get some good footage out of it.
Yeah. It's not.
You can just like level it out if you can, or no? Yeah.
Yeah. It's this thing right here is like, so it's bouncing.
Oh.
Yeah, but hey, we'll go with this right now. We can like cut it up at different points, then it'll get different
100%.
angles.
100%.
Like we have somebody moving right here on the outside.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was just like, as you were saying that, there's definitely like, for me, listening to that, it invokes a really strong story in my head when you're talking about like branding an animal versus like branding your company, or like how those are really similar.
Okay.
So it's just interesting the fact that
Talk to me about that.
there's a lot of details that you can convey with like the story elements that you're choosing.
Yeah. So when you say it like invokes a story for you, go into more detail about that?
Well, I mean, it's just, branding an animal is definitely not a pleasurable experience. So, there's a little bit of pain, and when you have like when you have that visceral experience of like, oh, that would be painful.
Yeah.
Like it makes the listener actually visualize what you're trying to convey, and so like that's a super powerful thing. Around like, hey, this is what I've learned, or this is what I'm thinking about, structuring my own business.
Yeah.
And then giving it a story of its own, and like details and stories and characters and it wasn't like a lot, right? But it was like, hey, branding an animal, it was a very physical experience.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm gonna use my own imagination to come up with like filling in all the details.
Well, it sounds like part of what you're saying is that the reason, like, part of branding is a painful experience.
See, that's a deeper level that I wasn't thinking about.
Okay.
But that's interesting. Cook on that.
Well, people also say that I think a lot of people think that personal branding, because that's like all the rage right now,
yeah,
even just branding in general, should just be really, really easy. And I don't think it is easy. And I think the ones that are super easy, people don't necessarily like or remember. And that's one aspect. The other aspect is I think people are just naturally more aware of pain and potential pain.
Yeah.
And so if there's any type of pain, and it's not like physical pain, but a learning experience, I didn't know this before and now I know, and now I want to go and communicate to the world about this thing that I know and that I learned.
Yeah.
There's a lot of potential there for a brand, because that person has literally on their experience something branded on them.
That's interesting.
You see that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so like that's where I thought you were going with like the whole like pain thing, and like the branding and the pain.
That ties it even closer to the actual thing of branding a company.
Okay.
For me, it was just like the visceral experience of like I can visualize what you're talking about, without like, having like maybe a business background or stuff like that. But having that background, I'm like, oh yeah, like you're right. It does. It is actually a painful process.
Yeah.
Like it is very similar to that, more than just telling the story, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. It's so that actually leads into something that we were talking about throughout the week and over the past few weeks, which is mission-driven companies.
Yeah.
And how that's becoming more and more a staple, and less on the features and benefits, less on the specific product, but largely on the mission. Like, what are we trying to do? Because it's ends up being, okay, if you knock that one domino, you knock down multiple dominoes.
Yeah.
And leading with a mission, which is heavily influenced by your brand, ends up becoming really important. Like I think even tying that to the stuff that we're talking about today, the mission-driven stuff with just the organizing a business, is I thought you were gonna give that car a love tap. Is how do you you brand mission, and then you do your you have your mission. It's like mostly in the marketing sphere.
Yep.
And by marketing I mean interacting with your buyers, potential buyers, and potential sellers, like the people that you're going to be doing business with.
Yeah.
After branding, I think another core thing of marketing is selling, which is giving something to the people in your market that they want. And when you do that, I think I'm actually thinking about this more and more. I think it needs to be done. Doesn't need to be done, but I think if you don't have any idea of how valuable the thing that you're trying to offer is, giving it for free and then letting the demand drive the price up is a really straightforward path of testing ideas with the market.
That's interesting.
Because then
I know a lot of people that do the inverse,
where they start high and then they drive
overprice it and they say only my diehard fans are going to love this, and so that's what we're going to capture. And then it's like, well, I want to widen that lens because I want more people to be in this circle or have this product, and so they go down and down and down to the point where it's like, all right, how do I not reduce it anymore to where it's not valuable to anyone, but I'm still making like a profit on it?
Yeah.
But that's interesting. Going
that,
from like free to paid and from paid to free.
yeah, and that can actually be like, I think that that's a completely viable strategy, especially when there's reference points out there.
Sure, especially maybe if you have a history of selling stuff.
A history of selling stuff, or you like really know your audience and what they're willing to pay for, or it's like you have a really clear competitive,
which comes with
like,
that history, I think.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, we've done this many drops with this many numbers.
Yeah.
I can expect to do this. We can change up the tactic. But what you're talking about is like brand new
idea, and we're in the software space, so we get a lot of that.
True.
But the other thing is not necessarily when you're going to like market. Like, to me, go to market it's kind of obscure because it implies that you're going to do all of this stuff beforehand and then you're going to go to market and like
Right.
and then everything should be perfect by then. But in reality, things happen over progression and they happen over time.
Yes.
Like, we've technically gotten to market, but we're in our beta stage.
Right.
And so we communicate like with people that we know, with people that we meet online, with people that we think might have a fit for what we're doing. And that's marketing. That's interacting with the market and getting
Absolutely.
information and learning. And because we're changing our behavior after we interact and we get new information.
Yeah.
And so the whole idea of, okay, we're selling, give it away for free. It's more like, okay, let's test it with some people that are in the market, and then before we put a campaign behind it, or we make it like a premium feature or whatever it might be, we have some data on how it actually resonates.
That's interesting because I think that means that it doesn't matter if you're going, to an existing market or you're trying to, break into the market, as a brand new player. Like, both scenarios start with, okay, where's my reference points? Where's my historic data that I can use to make an informed decision?
Yes.
And it all comes from that. And I think there's a lot of companies that are like, big companies don't even do that.
Yeah.
They don't even go with like the data first approach. And
yeah, the good big companies do that.
Yeah,
but I think the ones that are moving towards like a downturn, stop doing that.
Well, the ones that are stagnant, but you can be an incumbent and being stagnant. That's totally fine. You can, you're kind of like more of a cash cow, but
if you have your
a shrinking cash cow.
If you have your sweet spot too, then you're good.
Well, that's always tough because I think the world's always innovating, and so you're going to be innovated out of a spot if you just continue that as like a business strategy.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's very interesting. I think something that we've talked about quite a bit applies here, right? The people that are doing, data-driven decisions and using that to inform, hey, what's next, is just, the good ones know more, right?
The good ones know more. The good ones know, and that's part of knowing more. It's literally interacting.
Yeah.
And there's various different ways you could do that. A/B tests. If you already have like a market or a captive audience or someone like a group of people's attention, there's like like right now, the way that I look at cold messaging, like either it's cold calling or cold DMs or whatever, is. And we're not at the stage where we can sell through that, but I look at it as like the best way to do that is to get feedback on an idea.
Yeah.
And get an understanding. Hey, if I can communicate to you this concept in a short amount of time, is there anything that's valuable around that? You can sell that way, but I also think like the way of selling, especially in technology, there's like way better ways of selling.
Yeah.
Whether it's like through social media or like just creating a funnel, or if there's like you just have like a digital shop that people can just find you. But in terms of like product development and business development, I think that early selling and saying, hey, we want to give this to these people, is that something that's valuable? Okay, like how valuable do you think that is?
Yeah.
Would you actually be able to use that? Would you actually be thinking about putting money up? Can I give you like a demo so you could see what that is actually like?
Right.
And then, cooking in that regard. But then, so that's like all marketing activities that I think can be done before a lot of feature development, or they can inform a lot of feature development.
That's true. Yeah.
And sometimes here's another thing too, is like, as an entrepreneur, you might be the market that you're trying to serve.
That I think is an underrated superpower, where if you can build for yourself, right? Like, you almost skip to step 2 where it's like, oh yeah, I already found my market because I am the market.
I am the market.
Like,
yeah, I am the
but
market.
there's a lot of people that try to do that, and they're really only developing for their specific niche, like too specifically.
Yeah,
Right? Where it's like, oh, like, you know, whatever you built is like only applicable to you and not to a wider audience.
yeah,
Like you can get into this weird, I guess, like feedback loop where it's like you have to be able to take feedback and get insights from people that are in the wider market and not just you. So, like, I think it's a good thing to do to build for yourself, but you can't just put the blinders on and build for yourself.
agreed. It's like if you're, because that's the equivalent of building for one person in a market. Like if you survey 100 people and you only build for the one person, then
Yep.
like you run the risk of only satisfying that one person.
Which, in a vacuum, obviously, as we're talking about this on the podcast, like, it sounds crazy. No logical person would think that.
Yeah.
But what you have to realize is that people that are in this position, even us, like, there's so much advice and information given to you that this is not just one piece of advice taken in a vacuum.
Yeah.
You know, people hear this, but then it's also juxtaposed with like, oh, do things that don't scale.
Yeah.
Build things that you like to
Like,
see.
what the fuck does that mean?
It's like there's things out here that directly contradict with like doing market research and market analysis.
Yeah.
If you look at it in the wrong light. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And so it's just also having like a certain amount of common sense around all the different advice that you're going to get when you're trying to achieve these things.
Yeah. Yeah. That can be hard though. I mean, what
Yeah, because there's a lot of noise.
in like speaking about branding, like this is stuff that we're learning, I'll say. We're in the
Yeah.
process of learning, changing our behavior to achieve a goal. Like how do you actually build a business that is sustainable,
Organized,
that's profitable,
sustainable, yeah.
that's, you know, something that you enjoy doing. One thing that you said about like making sure that you like building for yourself is one of those things that people don't really talk about, is especially when you're part of a bigger market that you can identify. Is
Right, there are conditions there
Yeah.
where it works really, really well.
Yeah.
But if you don't meet those conditions, you're going to be building for the one person in an
Yeah.
entire market.
Yeah. Dude, take Telegraph up here. For those people that aren't listening, from the Detroit area, you know.
Yeah.
But the so the thing that I like really made that stick with me is I was thinking about I was like, there's no way Steve Jobs is using a Microsoft based product. There's no way anybody at Apple is. It's like you're only using Apple products.
Right.
And the part of that means creating a standard for the like what they want to deliver that allows them to actually. I haven't been here since they've done this.
Okay, south or north?
North.
North.
South.
Okay, I was going to say you pointed south and said
Yeah.
north. So I just want to make sure there's data here.
Big signals. Yeah, this is so much different. Wow.
You know, I don't notice it.
Yeah, it was just one lane, and you could only go south here before. But the hey,
Highlighter.
but yeah, so they were building products for themselves, and they built products that they use and that they want to use.
Yeah.
And a lot of times businesses start like that. Is, hey, I needed this thing and it wasn't out there, or I was using this product in a not in a haphazard way, but in a way that it wasn't intended to be used.
Right.
And I figured that, hey, if I just built my own version of it, I could make it more in line of how I wanted to use it.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that's another conversation we talked a lot about with product development.
Oh, absolutely. And
Yeah.
there's going to be another episode on what we've learned in product development, not just what we've learned in building a
Yeah,
business. But
exactly.
That's
like
going to be a
very
lot of fun.
specifically and zoning in on that. So like, since we're gonna, you know, earmark that for another day, looking at the next part is the finance stuff, and we don't like have to go super into that, but that's, to me, that's downstream of marketing, and there's so many different avenues there. There's like the economics of what you're doing. There's the like actual financing, which literally means to like cancel a debt. For services, you know. But anyway, so there's like the financing of it, there's the accounting of it, and there's all these different areas to make sure that, hey, what we're doing actually has some sustainable.
It's viable.
It's viable.
Yeah, and I think that's that's going to be an entire episode that we dive into around, you know, the different angles of financing in a business.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited for that one.
Yeah, and it's like also like, you know, the whole fundraising aspect of that's something that we're going through right now.
Yeah.
And these are all areas around like the financing part, and then there's the product stuff, and the product stuff is the fun stuff. That's really where it ends up being. It's like the product stuff is the fun stuff, especially in technology.
Especially, yeah.
You know, because it's like the big part about a technology-driven product company is that it's all in how we're doing it, like how we're employing different techniques, especially in the IT space, information techniques,
Right.
to deliver like value and to deliver a solution. But I guess going back to like the start of this whole thing, without the context of where that fits in the organizing a business, it can get really, really frustrating because you can have a great product, but you don't really have, they say products market fit, but it's like, okay, well, what does product market fit mean? And then it's, you know, kind of going to the things that we were talking about a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
With, it's an obscure term, but it means like establishing, in my mind, it means establishing a brand. It means communicating that brand to other people. It means understanding how to to build a brand, and continuing to learn. And that's just, it's such a crucial part of the business that it kind of boggles me how obscure it is when people are talking about startups and people are talking about creating startups,
Right.
and what that whole process is like. And people will repeat it, product market fit, product market fit. But then you say, okay, well, what do you mean by that? And then people will say, well, I think it means, you know, getting something that people want. And it's like, yeah, but like practically, like to a point where, you know, you can repeatedly
Execute on that.
execute on it and have a process around that.
Right. Yeah, it's very interesting. I think what we've learned from like so far here is going to be also changing as we develop new techniques and like new patterns, and like, oh, we tried this for a couple minutes and this didn't work, so let's hop over this, and like, oh wow, that did work and this is why it worked. So
Or
that's
this thing
another
didn't
thing.
work out initially, but then you waited a little bit and then it worked.
There's other conditions where that is the perfect like strategy for this thing. Like I'm going to be so happy that we're actually recording these things, because we're going to be able to go back and almost do like a retrospective of, oh wow, I can't believe we thought that way, or we can't believe we did that, and then look at where we are now. And so that's another feature of these drives, of just like being able to reflect, and that's fantastic.
I think it's going to be so cool getting more people on the founder drive, like driving with other founders.
Oh yeah.
In like what they're doing and what they're learning about different areas of the business or in their area of business.
Right.
That to me seems like a fucking
force multiplier.
Yes.
And also
language, by the way.
Also, what I'm really excited about is being able to highlight local Detroit startups. There are so many really talented, really interesting Detroit startups that are happening that are just not seeing the right light of day that you would see in like San Francisco.
Yeah.
And we can be a catalyst for bringing those people into the light. So really excited about that.
I was looking at some venture capital stats.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I think venture capital is very cool, but I also think it's becoming less needed.
True. With AI?
With AI and with the connectivity and these platforms and being able to build an audience and build a market. Because part of what venture capital was like or was so necessary before, in my opinion, it's still necessary, the function it helps is it gives you time and space to take a product and go and establish a market and go and establish people that can find that product market fit. And then once you find that, it builds on that initial product market fit. A lot of seed capital is in finding product market fit.
I think, well, that's interesting, right? There's a lot of things that VC capital is good for, and it really depends on where you're at in the business cycle, right? So like pre-product, a lot of that money is going to be, we're going to find a developer, we're going to find a designer, right? Post-product, it is that what you're talking about. Hey, now that we have this, how do we go to market? How do we bring it to the market and test, is this a thing that the market is going to reciprocate with value, right? And then there's another thing on top of that, right? That third stage of VC where it's like, hey, we built the product, we found our product market fit by bootstrapping or by other means. Now we need more gasoline for this fire.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a definitely different
Stages of
aspects
venture capital.
that, yeah, and they benefit from any of those stages, but the amounts also vary in all those different stages, and the way that they try to invest and the way they try and get equity is different in every single one of those stages. But yeah, what you're speaking to, what I'm assuming is like that middle piece.
Yeah.
I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, sure.
That's back to the house. But yeah, that's fun.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So, where I bought my car at.
Oh really?
Yes, sir.
Wow. Maybe we like go up there like another mile and then we circle back
Come
around.
down for whatever. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's critical, right?
Yeah.
VC money helps in a lot of different angles.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's going away, but you can go a lot farther without it today.
Well, and I think with context and knowing what you're trying to do with it. But what I was going to get at is I was looking at a map of all of the share of VC dollars that were spent in 2024, like how many deals were actually done in America.
Yeah.
How many venture capital firms there were, where they were located.
I saw those same stats for the Midwest.
It's so low.
It was very interesting to see some of those numbers, though. They were low comparatively.
To compare to like California.
Relatively.
Yeah, relative
But
to
I'm
California.
like, wow, that actually is more money than I had expected.
In here?
Just because
Were you
I
looking
don't
at the raw dollar amount, or were you looking? I was looking at the share versus like.
Oh,
Michigan.
I think it was like the actual like couple $1 billion that were spent in the VC space in the Midwest.
Okay.
But I was like, yeah, I'm definitely going to link that study here.
Okay, so 49% of all the deals in 2024 were out of California.
Mm-hmm.
It was like 1.3% of like the total money that was flowed through
Came from.
was in Detroit.
Wait, what was that number?
Or it was in Michigan. It was like 1.3%
1.3% was in Michigan.
of the total dollars that were allocated
Funded,
through deals.
yeah. Which is crazy to me because that 1.3% out of what, $100 billion that was funded or whatever, like probably more than that.
Yeah.
Just it seemed like a lot of money to me.
The
raw number.
absolute amount
Yeah.
is like, it's a lot of money. It's $1 billion. But when you look at through all of the money that's actually going out, the share of it is still like a sliver compared to what's going on in California.
Yeah.
And then you look at like, I think the amount of deals that were actually done was like 35% came out of California.
Yep.
Then another big portion of it is in New York, and then another big portion of it is in Texas.
Austin, Texas.
Yeah, and then everything else just really tapers off. And so it's, to me, like a big part of, like, especially when you're talking about, okay, how do we communicate a lot of this, like VC, or not VC, the founders in the area, because there are a lot of cool ideas going on, but I don't think it's anywhere near established as it is in
I think with the amount of money that is being spent, there could be so much better display of what the kind of progress that we are making in Detroit, because that money is being used to fund, like I said, super smart people with really good ideas.
Yeah.
And they're making companies. It is working. And so it's just sad that, you know, people with this much success in the local area have to go to California to get their story heard, or, you know, Austin, Texas. It's like there should be a way for people to see the value that's being, like, pretty much laid out in the city and around the city, and then to be able to engage with that. Hey, that's a product that's local that I never knew that was local. I would love to use that. And I think a lot of people have a lot of pride in using things that are from Detroit.
Yeah, the market is definitely not here is not where it could be. It's not even anywhere close to its potential. But I think a large part of it is like the organization in the West Coast cities. They also have weather on their side.
They do.
So that's a really cool.
They do. But I guess break that down. Why do you think that's important?
Which part?
Weather.
Weather?
Yes. Because in California, out of 365 days, they're gonna have around 360 fair weather days.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's I don't. It's probably not 360. It's probably 364. But whatever. Like almost every single one of the day is a fair weather day. But like, I guess talk to me why you think that's important.
I think people just like being in, like, California's beautiful.
That's true.
And like,
Michigan's also beautiful.
It is, but it's the weather is so. We have some harsh winters, and I think we just came off a cold winter where you feel it in your bones, and I think that's something that a lot of people run from.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that, but I don't, but I don't
Keep
think
going.
I don't think it's the only thing that people care about.
True.
And the reason why I think that is important is I'm seeing, because there's opportunity here, more and more people are coming from California and Texas to Michigan. Like, you can see Texas license plates, you can see
Yeah.
California license plates, Georgia license plates, Florida license plates. And so the only reason why people would be coming from a warmer, more pleasant area is if there's a reason, if there's opportunity. And I think the investment in the opportunity has created more reason for people to come to Michigan.
Yeah.
And then when you couple that, I don't think that the work is anywhere close to them, because when you actually still look at that was just an increase in opportunity.
Right.
But when you look at like the actual opportunity across America, especially in like the venture space, which people in Detroit are saying that they really want to have be a staple of the area. There's money flowing in the venture space in the other areas. I'm sure
Right.
that there's like jobs here that are increasing, but the deal flow in the other areas is just way faster.
Yeah.
Like, it's just in another league. And I am sure that so many people in Michigan and in Detroit are losing potential startups because people are like, I don't even know how to get a deal done here. Like, I don't know where to go.
It's hidden. It's all stealth. Everything
Yeah.
is stealth.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be. You know, there's some really smart people with some really good ideas that need to be in the light.
Yeah.
What's interesting about the whole weather thing is you would think that the Four Seasons that we have builds a lot of grit in founders from this place.
Mm-hmm.
And that's good, especially for the resilience you need, like for a startup. But I also think maybe the warm weather gives people looser pockets.
No?
Maybe there's like a, hey, like I feel better about today. Like I just
Yeah.
feel I'm in a good mood, and so like I'm willing to go on into these deals where the people in Michigan, because they can feel that cold in their bones, are going, I need my money to stay warm or something. Like, I don't know what it is, but it's a very interesting thing to pick on. Like, hey, like, is the weather a factor here into why VC dollars aren't flowing more freely?
I think it's. I mean, I'm sure that there's a correlation there, but I think that it's largely mindset, and it's.
Yeah, but the weather plays to your mindset,
Mhm.
and I think that's a really important psychological thing.
Okay.
When you're in these turns of seasons,
Yeah.
you start that you just naturally, I think, have a certain level of I don't want to call it like appreciation for life, but I think there is like a certain truth to having like a winter depression where you're not getting the sunlight all the time, and you come into the sun and it's like, oh wow, like I just feel better.
Mm-hmm.
If you never have that dip in the vitamin D or whatever, like you're always at this like elevated, like, oh yeah, everything's good. I think it plays into the psychology of how you're going to invest your dollars, which is the mindset.
No, I think it absolutely plays a factor. What I was thinking about as you were saying that was a lot of like sports.
Okay.
When I think about the like, to me, we're pre Dan Campbell in the VC when we look at VCs.
That's very true.
Yeah. It's like we want to be good, but we still don't know how. And what Dan Campbell did to Detroit football was, one, he just, if I have to summarize it, he changed the mindset of what people thought was possible. And it started with the players, and then when the players saw opportunities, it didn't happen right away. It took a few years.
Right.
But then it opened up the floodgates where it was like, oh, okay, we can actually go and make a run. And then a run happened, and it's like, oh, this is our new normal. Okay, we can work with this.
Yep.
Like, and I think that needs to happen for venture capital. And maybe it is in the process of happening, but when I just look at the overall stuff, when I look at my experience right now, I'm like, I'm not really convinced. I still think there needs to be some heavy hands that are shown through deals and not through like saying like
Yeah.
words only.
Correct. You need to
That
see
makes-
some action.
Yeah.
The great part about it is Michigan has such a good precedence for literally doing all of this kind of innovation. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like the big three, Henry Ford.
Yeah.
Like, just there's so many things, beyond that, where it's just like, wow, if we can just do that exact same thing we did in the past with VC, we could become a powerhouse
Yeah.
of innovation for the United States. And I think that's the really exciting part.
Yeah.
I agree it's not happening today, but I also think like us putting out this video and many others like it are going to help push that boulder down the hill, or up the hill, I guess I should say.
But I think we should wrap and
Give me an outro. Give me an
intro
outro.
this outro. Well, if you're finding any of this stuff interesting, then watch the next episode.
Yeah, if you found anything that we talked about interesting,
and reach out, but actually
Reach out.
leave some like comments on what you might want us to talk about around things that we're learning, and we're eventually going to be setting up like a little concepts group where we talk about some of these things with even more granularity and try to make that stuff applicable, and creating a founders group in the city.
yeah.
And so, yeah, like just reach out and interact with us, and we'd be more than happy to engage.
Heck yeah, check us out.